And we'll just give it a few minutes to start live on the screen. Okay. Right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Safer Communities meeting, subcommittee meeting of the 16th of November 2020. It's very nice to see you all here, and you are more than welcome. Does everybody have sight of the agenda? Yes. Okay. Excellent. Hayden, I have you with your hand raised already. Is that a mistake, or have you got an issue to raise?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. I just want to give Owen's apologies. He won't be attending tonight. His wife's poorly and he's got to look after the children. So I'm going to give you his apology before we start the meeting.
Thank you, Thank you, Hayden. So that's apologies, and let's move on to agenda item number 1 then, which is apologies for absence. So we've got Owen Phillips. I've also got apologies from Councillor Shelley O'Brien, and we've had a note from Councillor Major Singh to say he's stuck on the M6, where there's a major hold-up at the moment following an accident. Colleagues, do we have any other apologies? No, thank you very much indeed. Can we move to agenda item number 2 then, please? Or should I actually start with the checklist for the meeting? So let's just go through the checklist. Members, there are no members of the public looking to speak tonight, or any other people other than Robert Beggs and Richard Dobbs. It doesn't appear that there'll be any issues that we will vote on. However, if we do vote on them, then together with Mr. Tobin, I'll lead you through the voting process. The items in the agenda pack are for noting predominantly, unless anybody wants to raise a motion or some other recommendation. Please do be conscious that we are streaming live on YouTube. And other than that, that's the checklist. So let's move to agenda item number 2 then, which is disclosable pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Does anybody have any interest in anything on the agenda? No? Thank you very much indeed. That takes us on to agenda item number 3 then, which is the minutes of the last meeting, which we held on the 16th of March 2020. Can I first do those minutes for accuracy, please? They are in your pack on agenda items, sorry, on pages numbers 4 and 5. So in terms of accuracy, page 4. And page 5. Is everybody happy to agree those as a true and accurate record? Yes, thank you very much indeed. Okay then. I will sign those as a true and accurate record. Right, matters arising. Robert, do we have any matters arising?
No, Chair, they're all covered on the main agenda items.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public participation? There's nobody present in the meeting and I've not received any questions or statements. No, so we have no public participation, which smoothly takes us on to agenda item number 5, which is the fly tipping progress report. Mr. Dobbs, are you presenting this?
Thank you, yeah. I wasn't planning to, unless Robert is desperate for me to do so. We normally do this, I think, as a sort of a double act. But I'm happy to add a few points, I think, to the report, just for members' information. Just a few observations, obviously, which is I think that we seem to be working much more closely with the police and the Environment Agency than we have done for a long time, which is encouraging and something that Robert and I and others have long tried to do more of, try to get more engagement. And certainly I think that the police have been, with their rural crime team and their focus in this area, are doing more with us, which is good. So that's definitely encouraging and something we'd like to see more of. I think that we've seen an increase in fly tipping. That's certainly true across the police, which is a worrying development. Everything we've tried to do has been, we've had difficulty stemming the tide on that. It has been, there's been, as I say, significant increases, and it's taking an awful lot of resource to deal with it at a time when we could really do with being able to deploy our resources into other areas, but we have to deal with the situation we've got. I think it's fair to say we've also seen quite a lot of fly tipping on private land. I mean, we always get a mixture of private and public land, but certainly getting an awful lot of inquiries from private landowners about fly tipping that's been dumped on their land. Farmers and others seem to be struggling quite badly at the moment. And we've also had some difficulty with things like thefts and damage to CCTV cameras that we've deployed. So our efforts to try and capture information and to bring perpetrators to justice, they're obviously damaged by that sort of thing. But we are looking at a range of technologies and deploying a range of technologies. One thing I would add is that we're now starting to see, or we have been starting to see, some movement in terms of being able to bring people in to interview them face to face. Our environmental health colleagues have found difficulty during the first lockdown in terms of being able to get pursue or progress a number of cases they've been looking at because of the COVID restrictions, making it very, very difficult to have those face-to-face interviews with those people that we've of interest to us, and we've had intelligence about and we've recovered evidence about when we've looked at fly tips. So it's been good that they've been able to start doing that sort of thing again. But of course, as we go into further lockdown restrictions and things get more difficult, again, that slows that process down. It reduces our capacity, it reduces the police's capacity to assist us, and therefore it just slows things down again. But we will continue to work with our colleagues in the Environment Agency and the police and to deal with that. And we are dealing with a particularly difficult and expensive, unfortunately, fly tip in a trailer, on a lorry trailer in Middleton, that's caused an awful lot of headaches and is very resource intensive. We've got the Environment Agency there, we've got the police doing an awful lot of work on that particular case, obviously our own Streetscape guys and Warwickshire County Council and their contractors as well been looking at that, because there were some potentially particularly quite nasty things in that flight as well to deal with, all of which has been problematic. But I'm happy to take any questions. I see Councillor Parsons already raised his hand, and obviously Robert is here as well to dive in and pick up the multitude of things that I'd probably missed.
Robert, before open to members, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of numbers, 815 incidents fly tipping from April to October. So you can see the scale of increase there. Environmental health are still trying to carry out investigations where there's any evidence found. The suspension of interviews under caution currently, and there's one court case due on the 2nd of December. Some of the hotspots Richard's mentioned there, some particular lanes around Hartshill have been very problematic. We've had cameras stolen from those lanes frequently. We are looking to look at a different type of deployment of CCTV there. So that will hopefully get set up in the next few weeks, really. And from the list of hotspots, you'll see there's usual rural locations, but also some hotspots in Atherstone around some of our flats and the bin stores and large containers. So we are working with housing colleagues around some of the issues around their flat complexes with fly tipping. And more tips of tyres seem to have emerged over this period since March. It's been quite a while since we had lots of those happening across the borough, but those seems to be on the increase at the moment. And Richard's mentioned the abandoned trailer. The rural crime officer has been great in liaising with the Environment Agency and an investigation team that's working in the north on similar things. There's been large scales of those types of trailers been left in certain parts of the country. So she's hoping that there'll be some evidence found in the trailer to identify the owner of the trailer and then ultimately who's responsible for that trailer being left in the lay-by. Richard's also done a bit more work on working with parish council. So he's had a specific meeting with Middleton Parish Council to talk about fly tipping issues and how we approach it and how we can work together. And also in the report, you'll see a reference to the public space protection order at Flongley. We do need to review that. The COVID lockdown has interrupted our plans, if members recall from the last meeting back in March, that we were due to start planning to review the order. So we will now have to get that in and set up as soon as possible. And in the report, it's also mention of the balance on the additional resource that we've got. So there's in round figures, there's still 30,000 allocated in this year towards additional spend, which with the work on the trailer and CCTV, we might see some that balance disappearing quite soon. So that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Robert. And any comments on the action plan? I see everything's running until March 2021.
Yes, Chair. That's I kind of updated that to reflect that. If we get into position to review the actions in detail, we can amend some of those timescales.
Okay, then, members. Before I go to the hands that are raised, a couple of things. First of all, can I just say from the chair, thanks to the guys at Streetscape. I do think that the average clearance rate of 1.4 days is very impressive, and I know from my own experience that when I am reporting it, it is being cleared on the day. So there's some great work going on by the Streetscape team, and without doubt, they are busy looking at 800 reports. I also note the fact that we've got that money still left in the account, which is detailed at item 10-1. So when Richard Dobbs goes away and does some work with Middleton Parish, hopefully we'll pull out from there a package that we could offer to all parishes who are flagging as hotspots, just to see whether we couldn't do a suite of interventions that problem locations could pick up and consider, because without doubt there is opportunities sitting there with the parish councils as the guardians of the community that they serve. So in order of hands, I've got Dave Parsons, then I've got Denise Clues, and then I've got Jodie Gosling. So Councillor Dave Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. And can I just echo your comments about the thanks for the streetscapes teams? I mean, fly tipping is being dealt with very efficiently, I think, and that's got to be down to a lot of hard work on those teams' parts. They really are to be commended. I mean, I don't know whether it's for Richard or Robert, but I know from my time, my last 5 years, I worked on the canals of the British waterways, which was lovely. But I know that some property owners lived in fear of fly tipping and went down a few long drives and almost got chased off because they thought we were turning up with the transit to dump rubbish, basically, until they realised who we were. I mean, I know some property owners do live in fear of this because they get the bill, don't they, in the end, and that's not good. I just wondered if there's any indication of the police developing any sort of specialist officers or units in respect of this, because I don't know, but it would seem to me that this is a problem that is beginning to warrant this sort of approach, you know, to get on top of the intelligence and to try and try and mitigate the problem, really. I know it's not ours to sort out, but I wondered if there was any indication that this might be happening or some progress towards it, because I think it would be valuable in some respects. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Robert, I can see you've put your hand up. Have you got an answer? Yeah,
thank you, Chair. Just to highlight that the Warwickshire Police Rural Crime Team, the inspector's given a real commitment to work with us on fly tipping, and she's raised it at a corporate level that any reports that are lodged with the police get actually recorded as a crime. I think in previous days that they weren't actually recording all those reports as crimes, and they are. And we're seeing signs of the benefit of that team helping us with to tackle fly tipping. It's not easy to get the evidence of who's responsible, which is the massive issue that we've got to go against. But we're optimistic that the rural crime team will add a lot more benefit to our work generally. But you know, the trailer that's been left is one example. I think the rural crime and the SNT recently caught somebody actually in action while they were out in an area doing something else. But so you know, they happened to be in the right place, right time, and actually caught somebody actually fly tipping. So yeah, we'll hopefully we'll be able to come back in the future with some tangible benefits of how that team's helping us.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. I mean, and obviously the action plan members at Appendix A does go through and show some of the partnership working that is currently going on. Just one thing to add there, Robert, we're also involved in some organised crime group work that relates to fly tipping as well.
Yes, Chair, that has been raised at the Warwickshire level of the Serious Organised Crime Group. The Environment Agency have given some inputs and an overview presentation, but their kind of remit seemed to be focused on large-scale waste sites and that kind of scale of things. So I think the work on this trailer that's been abandoned might lead to more opportunities to work with them more locally. But you know, you have to keep chipping away and know the right people to work with, really, I think, to get the benefits. So.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Denise Clues.
Thank you, Chair. What it is I still think that a lot of members of the public don't realise that if it's tipped on private land, it is not down to the council to move it, because there's been quite a sufficient tip up the golf course, up the road on the way to the golf course. Now, it's been on virtually every night on Facebook, and the local councillors are getting knocked for it. We're getting phone calls to say, why isn't the council moving it? Now, we know that it's not down to us to move it, but obviously members of the public don't realise that. I know some of the canisters that was dumped was very high-grade fertiliser. So I don't know if we can just have a little nudge to the golf course to get it moved, because I don't think it's helping. Because I believe if somebody sees something's dumped, then they'll just add to it. So, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Denise. And you and I talked about the tip on the golf course, didn't I, which you will raise with Streetscape and the landowners. Richard, have you got anything to say to reinforce the Borough Council's policy on private land?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's right, and we are pursuing the golf course one. You know, and we always try to go and gather evidence, regardless of where the fly tip occurs. You know, we give advice with contractors. We try to be as accommodating as we can in terms of what we will pick up. My sort of rule of thumb is, if I can park a vehicle with at least one tyre on the public highway and still reach a fly tip without, and Clive will be interested to know that we don't commit any illegal trespass, of course, we wouldn't do that. But, you know, we will do our best to, you know, remove fly tipping where we can. But clearly, in instances like the Atherton golf course one, it's well and truly on private land, and you know, it is unfortunately for the landowner to deal with it. I have to say, you know, the Rural Crime Team, that they've obviously increased resource, and they are being far more proactive, I think, in terms of trying to get out to you know, private landowners and deal with rural crimes of this nature more than they have done in the past, simply because I don't think they have the capacity to do it. So they are doing more of that, and we are working more closely with them. But yes, it is an issue, and the NFU have raised it, you know, several times. For their members, it's a growing issue. It's something we'll keep working on. You know, we try and make sure that we put cameras in hotspot locations, regardless of whether that hotspot is private or public. You know, if it's an issue where we're getting a lot of fly tipping, we'll try and catch them in the act. You know, even if it's just vans going onto and off, you know, private land to dump. So we're doing what we can, but we can't cover the whole area, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Is that all right, Denise? Yeah. Okay, I've got Councillor Jodie Gosling next, and then Councillor Brian Moss. So, Jodie.
Hi, thank you. Just again to echo what a brilliant job Streetscape have been doing, and I really appreciate when they can't connect. So we've had issues with asbestos tipping and things like that. The communication, just to say that the risk assessment's in progress, and then we can communicate that back and kind of alleviate some of those concerns in the community. And again, it's really positive to hear that we are building that relationship with Rural Crime, and they've got a great capacity to support, because that will be, I think, instrumental in changing things. One of my questions, I've got a couple of questions. One of them is around good practice, and in the action plan it says exploring good practice from other places. Have we seen anybody who is actually succeeding, and kind of what kind of, are there any innovative approaches? Is there something that we are missing? You know, is anybody else winning this, or is everybody else in a similar situation? The second question was about the new cameras and the ongoing kind of theft of assets and things, and whether we have managed to source cameras which are slightly more resilient, or they've got a live feed. I know there was these discussions. Is there any reassurance that these cameras aren't going to go the same way as the last ones? I think that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Jodie. So 2 questions about best practice and where we can learn and borrow with pride, and then secondly about the technology that we're having an interesting experience with. Robert or Richard, do you want to pick those up? Suffice to me to say I am really proud that we are leading the way in Warwickshire, but clearly that opens the question up about regional and also national. Who'd like to answer the question about good practice?
I'll have a first stab at it, Chair. I mean, we do. I mean, we are all in the same boat, Jerry. I have to say, I don't think there's anybody who's really cracked the issue of fly tipping. I mean, one thing you do learn is that resource helps, in terms of being able to get out there and get your CCTV cameras in place and your signage in place. And we have seen improvements in areas where we've been able to target hotspots. But what it tends to do is move the problem along, and then so you're always chasing your tail of trying to find out where they're going to next. And we do learn from
Hi, can you ring me back in a few minutes, please?
We've had presentations at a county level from other areas who have had very successful enforcement campaigns and advertising and promotion campaigns, and we picked up quite a bit of that. And you'll see, some of the posters and things that we've deployed. The eyes watching you, and the Don't Be a Tosser campaign, which had its impact in a lot of different ways, mostly positive, I think. There were a few people who didn't quite see the same side of things that we saw in terms of the communication message we were trying to get across. But clearly, we're trying to try different things to reach different audiences when we do some of that. And in terms of the cameras, we have increasingly used better and different technology. We deployed better cameras. We deployed cameras that we have had remote stream cameras in the past. The problem, of course, is, as you'll appreciate, in NorthWarks, you're trying to find a 4G signal that works well enough to send something back that we can use before they've nicked it is a challenge. And so, as Robert said, we are looking at alternatives to do that, and we have had offers from landowners to site more permanent CCTV cameras in certain locations where we can take better advantage of the infrastructure that's on offer. But we've looked for cameras with trackers on them. We'll be deploying those as well. So there's a number of different things, and we work with crime, the police to see what sort of things are out there, assets are out there we can use. So certainly we are trying different things, and we're trying bigger and better things. But again, there is always going to be somebody who knows how to get around it, and therefore we keep trying something else. But Robert, have you got anything to add?
Thanks, Richard. The particular lanes where we've had problems recently in Hartshill, we're with one of our suppliers, we're looking for them to supply some cameras, but deploy them at much higher heights, practically. So we'll see. We'll have to see how that goes. Some people can be very robust and motivated to remove the cameras, but I can't give you an absolute reassurance that it's never going to happen. I think we are up against it, really, in terms of trying to get the cameras out that are not that identifiable immediately and can't be stolen or destroyed in some way. But hopefully we'll be able to inform you of a new deployment in a slightly different way quite soon. So.
Okay, super. Thank you, Robert. Richard, you put your hand up again.
Yeah, just to come back in on that. Another of the problems we find, of course, is that the CCTV cameras we deploy don't just catch fly tippers, and they tend to be in the locations where a variety of nefarious activity takes place. And some people, as a result of that, are more motivated to remove the assets and infrastructure that we've deployed. And you can imagine what sort of things. But we've caught what looked like suspicious drug activity, and we pass this stuff to the police, of course. But again, there's an element of serious and organised crime, and they're very aware of their surroundings, and if they've got even the slightest inkling that they're being watched or recorded, they'll go out their way to try and make sure either then or at a later date they go and retrieve that evidence before we can. So yeah, it presents its challenges.
Okay, thanks, Richard. I mean, just on this issue, that am I right in thinking we're the only district who are progressing an action plan at the moment in Warwickshire?
I think, Chair, everybody's doing things to a greater or lesser extent. I would like to think that we've got the most comprehensive set of actions of any district and borough in Warwickshire. Certainly, I know colleagues in Rugby are trying to do quite a bit, but yes, I think ours is probably as good a set of actions and a more integrated, particularly our multi-agency approach. I think Robert deserves a lot of credit for the work that he's done in getting us, around the table, virtually as these days, of course, but with a number of agencies. And I think that is something that a lot of the other districts and boroughs will probably like to copy.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely recognising Robert's contribution to this. And I suppose, Robert, there is no best practice lying around that we haven't picked up and cleared. Just to cover Jodie's point.
I think there's always more good practice out there that we can spend some time to do more research on, really. So it's juggling all the different priorities, really, that perhaps stops us from doing as much work on that as perhaps we need to. But it's certainly something we should do a little bit more on, I think. So.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, let's just open that out to members, and if anybody is aware of good practice going on elsewhere in terms of tackling fly tipping, then please do flag it to Richard, Robert, and myself, and we will certainly have a look at it. Now, I've got Brian Moss, and then I've got Dave Parsons. Dave, is that an old hand or is that a new hand?
Did want to come back with a very, very brief point, Dave.
All right, well, let's go to Brian first, because he's been,
yes, absolutely.
Besides taking all his phone calls, he's been very patient. Brian.
Yes.
Brian, you're muted, mate. Brian, you're muted. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Do I have to say it all again? Kingsbury Rifle Range, the entrance by the road is getting bad for fly tipping. The chap who I think either owns it or leases it, he certainly farms it, has normally been good at getting rid of the rubbish, but he's very ill at the moment. And of course now, you see, as people are alluded to, people think, oh, that is the tip. There's a good place to tip, and the tipping increases. I'm not totally sure about the ownership of that land, but if somebody could just have a look at it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. That phone's going again. Richard, have we picked that one up? And by the way, do we have a set of waste contractors that we would recommend to private landowners?
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly more than happy to help. There are two or three that we use on a regular basis, depending on the nature of the waste. Obviously, asbestos and hazardous waste, we use a different set of contractors to sort of bulk collection. So we're more than happy. And for small amounts, if we can talk to landowners about getting access to it and clearing it with our own crews, if it's the easiest and quickest way of doing the sort of thing. I mean, in terms of that site at Kingsbury, I'll ask whether we're aware of it, because we're more than happy to go and put signage out and stuff like that. If that will help try and deter people, if it's become a little bit of a hot spot because people see it and therefore they're aware of it and then they go and add to it. If we can deter people from doing that by deploying some of our CCTV signage in the area, then I'm more than happy to do that. So we'll certainly look into that, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And then finally, we're back to Dave Parsons for a follow-up. Dave.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, for letting me come back again. Can I just mention a hotspot, which is Laundry Lane near Shuttington, and a few field entrances down that way that they are frequently being used at the moment. And I know Laundry Lane is quite often used for people getting rid of the residue from cannabis farms, basically, which they do at regular intervals. So that's there. The other thing I wanted to point out was that actually, since our waste recycling areas have reopened, I mean, if Blower Farm is anything to go by, I mean, that system is absolutely excellent. There's no hassle in getting your appointment, and you can, you get there, the site's incredibly well run, social distancing is excellent, and really it's exemplary. And, you just think, oh, why on earth are people fly tipping when that service is so available and so easy to use? Yeah, but so thank you, Chair. That's it.
Okay, thank you, David. That's all the hands I can see raised. So let's just tidy this up then. So, Richard, as far as I can remember, we've got one action, which is you're engaging with Middleton Parish, and out of that work, we're just going to see whether there isn't a suite of products that we could offer parish councils in terms of being good guardians of their parish areas. Is that deliverable?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Chair. I mean, certainly one of the things that came out of the discussion we had with Middleton is parish councils quite rightly saying that they'd like more communication with us around these things. So not just about giving us information about what's happening and knowing the right place to go to, and feeding in, evidence of, because an awful lot of the time the point was being made that they're aware of activity that is out of the norm, even if it's not immediately linked to something criminal. And so we're keen to put them in touch with the rural crime team. We're keen, obviously, for them to relay that information to us. But the other thing they want is progress and reporting back on what's happened with things that they've reported to us. So have there been prosecutions? Have we issued fixed penalty notices? What happened on that evidence that they supplied? And that is the closing of the loop that I think shows parishes and councillors and members of the public that actually it's worth them coming to us with this information, with this intelligence, because it does lead to successful prosecutions and fines and all the rest of it. So we certainly said we will do that with Middleton, but of course we'd like to roll that out to every parish within North Warwickshire. So Robert and I and others are working on that to see how we can sort of formalise that to make sure that we get that information back to people and encourage the flow of information coming the other way. Clearly, COVID, as with so many things, has sort of slowed us down a bit, and we've not quite finished that piece of work off as quickly as we'd like, but certainly we're on it, and we'd like to do far more of that in terms of getting the parishes involved.
That's super. Thanks, Richard. Well, we'll have that then, please, as an action for the next meeting to roll over. Right, members, unless anybody else has got any other issues, I intend to move to agenda item number 6. Everybody okay? Show your hand now or forever hold your peace. Okay then, right, so I can see no hands, so let's take it over to agenda item number 6, page 16 of the report, which is the Community Safety Partnership update. Now, before I hand over to Robert, one of the things that I will ask is, item 6 talks about some work that's been done around perceptions of safety in the borough. And if possible, members, I know that it's always very tempting to get involved in debate about the crime, but I think the issues under paragraph 6, item 6, are really good ones that we should bring our combined intelligence to work out a way forward with some of this. So having given you that taster, I'm now going to hand over to Robert just to run through the report. Robert.
Thank you, Chair. I may need to get the report up on the screen at different points, but I'll start with my prompts first. But to get into more details, I might have to go back into the report. So you might see the report up on the screen shortly. So just bear with me and shout up if it causes you a problem to follow where I'm going. Okay. The report provides an update from the Community Safety Partnership, and together with the report there's Appendix A and Appendix B, which are the usual crime statistics information. So Appendix A is the crime statistics from April to September this year, 2020, and Appendix B is the Q2 Community Safety Performance Report, which provides the information in a slightly different format. So it looks back 12 months from that actual current position on Q2. So just please bear in mind that they're comparing 2 different time periods when you look at the greens and red status on the actual crime figures. So to start with, on paragraph 4, there's an overview of some of the headlines on the crime statistics. So we are trying to focus on violent crime. So you'll see the information there, particularly around violence with and without injury. And a particular focus on that is domestic abuse. And during the current situation and going back to the original lockdown due to COVID, nationally there was quite some concerns about the potential risk of increases in domestic abuse that wouldn't be reported. So in terms of North Warwickshire's position, you can see that over the last 12 months, going back from Q2, there's an increase with violence without injury. So there's 107 more incidents of that nature. So by all reports, the figures on the increase on domestic abuse haven't gone up as perhaps we might have feared originally, but I'll come back to that in a bit more detail shortly. Good news that serious acquisitive crime is reducing across virtually all the types in that category. So that includes residential burglary dwellings, vehicle crimes, so theft ofs and theft froms. Bad news in terms of figures, antisocial behaviour incidents are going up, and at that point the 639 more incidents, and I'll come back to that in a little while. And overall crimes are down by 119 crimes at that position at Q2. So I'll kind of highlight that good news from that as well. So at paragraph 4.2, I've mentioned about some of the impacts on crimes and incidents due to COVID. And there's been some consideration at the Safer Warwickshire Partnership Board around some of the implications from that. So domestic abuse, and I've outlined in the report a bit more detail that's been highlighted at the board around some of the concerns over increases of domestic abuse. And social behaviour incidents, they've gone up. So there's some information in the report there about the range of things that have appeared to influence that increase. There's certainly anecdotally, talking to the local police, there's been a lot of things reported around people's behaviours during the lockdown period. So and people seeing other people not actually complying with the rules and regulations as they see it, and those have generated an awful amount of reports for the police to consider and respond to. So in the report gives you some information that's been presented to the Safer Warwickshire Partnership Board around those increases. So do you want me to carry on, Chair, as I go through now, or in a bit more detail?
Well, let's just hold it there then, and just pick up the issues around the crime stats and the ASB. Colleagues, obviously there's a lot of information in here, and as we always acknowledge, it's interesting stuff when you start looking at percentages and increases and all the rest of it. Is there anything that Robert has covered so far that you'd just like to revisit in more detail, or are you happy for him to continue? Jodie?
Hiya, yeah. I'd just like to clarify whether we know, I see there's been some work done into separating the COVID and the non-COVID ASB, and just to clarify what kind of percentages we are looking at. I understand the work's still ongoing, but what kind of percentages are the COVID ASB as opposed to the non-COVID ASB, and where that puts us in our kind of long-term perspective of ASB? Yeah.
Oh, you see, you never thought you'd be talking about COVID ASB 12 months ago, did you? Robert, can you answer that question?
I'll try to. I'm just going to skip back to the report first, but just bear with me. I do, yeah. Okay. No, it's not on that one, is it? Yeah, I think the figures that are shown in the latest crime statistics, Appendix A, reflect some of the changes that Warwickshire Police put in place to try and track the differences on the COVID. So I think those there give a current picture, but don't reflect everything that happened going back from when this first started. So I can't honestly give you a precise split of the difference between what would be normal ASB or now COVID related going back in that time. It's certainly something I'll try and get an accurate kind of picture on for you. But I think as we went into this over time, arrangements were put in place to try and track the specific COVID related. So you'll see some stats in the Appendix A that reflect that. So I'm sorry I can't answer that in full, but I'll promise to try and get you a full answer on that one.
Brilliant, thank you.
All right, thanks, Robert. I can see that I've got Marion and Denise Clues. So Marion Humphreys. Hello, Marion. We can't hear you. Are you muted?
Beg your pardon. I think in these unprecedented times, a lot of our statistics are going to be skewed by COVID for domestic abuse and things like that. So as I think my concern is that anybody that is in this situation at the time has got the backup from our community resources to deal with the situation they're in at the time. And I think if our police force and any of our services have got that backup and the council feel that the services are there to back them up, I think that's one of the things that we need to be looking at the same time as looking at these resources and figures that we're getting.
Yeah, definitely, Marion. I would agree with that one. I mean, we're talking about 639 more incidents, aren't we? And I suppose there's a question about it. Antisocial behaviour is always to a degree around people's tolerance, and with everybody being at home and working from home, and with a hot summer, it would be interesting to hear what Robert reports back when we talk about what are the COVID-related increases, because, you know, it certainly is a stressful time for members of our community, isn't it, at the moment, through fear and whatever about the COVID restrictions. So it's one to watch. Denise.
Thank you, Chair. Jodie has kind of hinted on what I was going to bring up, because, as you know, I spoke to you earlier about the amount of antisocial behaviour. But when you read 4.4 and 4.5, and then it's saying that some of these are due to COVID, I'd like to see the difference between the two, because if we put these figures out to members of the public, I think it'd be really worrying. But I wouldn't like to put these figures out to the public without seeing which are COVID related and which are antisocial behaviour that we've suffered with before. Because if you look at some of the others, they've gone down. Like burglary's gone down because obviously through COVID people was in the houses. Crime to businesses has gone down because I suppose the shops were shut, so there wouldn't be the shoplifting. So it is completely different, different to all the statistics, I think, this time with COVID being into it. Yet the serious and fatal accidents have gone up, which you'd think there'd be less people on the road. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for those comments, Denise. Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge to make sense of it, isn't it, in this different world. Marion, I'm sorry I never came back to you and confirm whether that had answered your question. I see you've put your hand up.
That's fine. That's fine. I just think that, you know, the antisocial behaviour, if it's a crowd of 30 people that won't leave a pub, that's different to antisocial behaviour of burglaries and street fighting and things like that. If they're just trying to move the crowd along and it's antisocial behaviour because it's taking police time, it's very important because we need them to go home because of COVID. But it's a different reason for the antisocial behaviour, isn't it? You know, COVID isn't, as you say, we need clarification, I think, of what's going on.
Okay, well, let us do a bit of work on that, and then Robert will come back and give us an update through the email system on where we're going with that. Now, I've got still got 3 people with their hands raised. Let's go to Hayden next, and then I've got Dave Parsons, and then I've got Jodie. Hayden.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak. It'd be also interesting to know what proportion of this antisocial behaviour is down to sort of drug related. I mean, we have a particular problem in Woodend where the people hanging around on the club car park late at night, and people are observing things have passed by. They can't say there's drug dealing going on, and there's also antisocial behaviour with sort of just them hanging around and playing loud music. So it'd be interesting to know what is down to drug dealing and or drug related activities. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for that, Hayden. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I was talking to police colleagues a month ago when we were talking about the reduction in alcohol consumption at licensed premises, and there was potentially noted that there was an increase in home cannabis use. And as soon as that was mentioned to me, I walked out into the community I was in, and suddenly I could smell cannabis everywhere. So there is clearly some different behaviours going on amongst our residents. So we'll have a look at those. Jodie.
It was just a quick one, really. The anomaly of Atherstone North, the fact that their ASB has gone down. Is that just to do with populated areas and the fact that there were less people maybe out and about in Atherstone itself? Or do we have, because that's quite an interesting, strange event, really, isn't it? The fact they've gone down, whereas everybody else has gone up. I was just curious if we understand any of the reasons.
That's a bit of a detailed question, Robert. Do you want to have a stab at that? Is it alcohol related?
Just a word of caution that the ward level stats in the table in the appendices only look back on the equivalent quarter last year, so it could just be an anomaly, in that time period comparison. So it's not like comparing back on a full year's worth of figures. So and I guess Atherstone is more kind of visibly seen than some other areas, but it is only that limited time period, so it could go up and down. One thing I do want to stress though is that previously, before COVID, reports of antisocial behaviour were year on year decreasing, and we always had this concern around people not reporting things. One thing that COVID has done has motivated people to report things, so that's part of the puzzle really as well. So and there will be a range of things that are in those incidents that we perhaps wouldn't have heard anything about previously as well. So it will be interesting to try and get a bit more steer on the details.
And Robert, that's a really good point, actually. You've jogged my memory, because if colleagues remember, there was some concern, wasn't there, last year, that the trouble with getting through the 101 and getting through to the police was stopping people reporting antisocial behaviour, because, as Robert quite rightly says, we'd seen some pretty marked reductions in the volumes of incidents that were coming through, and while some partners were celebrating it as a success, it was proving very difficult to link interventions into the communities where those volumes had stopped. But good point, Robert. Yeah, and another one for us to go away and think about. I've got Dave Parsons, and I've got Denise Clues again. David.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm really echoing Hayden's point, actually, that the anecdotal evidence in Bolesworth that our rise in antisocial behaviour, which actually has been fairly consistent prior to COVID as well, is drug related. And certainly we have the Abbey Green Park where we believe there's a fair bit going on, and actually the borough cameras through a power failure packed up on our CCTV system, which is not been helpful really, but hopefully that's been attended to if it hasn't been already. But there are, for example, on the Park Avenue estate, which is quite a large council estate in Boswell, there are some car parks tucked away and garages tucked around in sort of quite narrow spots behind the houses and the like. And again, neighbours residents are quite often contacting me about, what they claim is drug dealing and difficult behaviour related to that in those areas. So, I mean, we have got a problem, and I do think that we need perhaps some initiative to begin to really look at that problem in not just Polesworth, but certainly in Polesworth. Yeah.
Yeah, Dave. I mean, I'd agree with you.
Okay.
I think the public prevalence of drug dealing is becoming more notable. I think that some of the work we're starting to do now, looking at some of the licensed premises, where we're not so much seeing alcohol-related issues, but we are definitely seeing increases in drug use and drug sales within those premises, particularly where we're starting to do some reviews of the toilets in pubs, which are all coming back and showing that the surfaces are testing positive for cocaine, which is showing that there's consumption and dealing going on in the toilets of pubs. So I think as we move forward, I think as we move forward, starting to look at the issue of drugs and starting to look at a dual approach, really. One of them will be around enforcement, another one will be around community and business empowerment to tackle some of the problems, and the third one would be around treatment and offender management services that go for drug dealers, but also for those people that are clients of the drug dealers at the moment who are running habits. So it's a good one, Dave, for us to pick up and to start thinking through the partnership about how we more effectively move forward. Denise, I can see your cat on the screen. That's incredible. Denise.
He thinks it's bedtime. Yes, it was just to confirm what you said, Chair. Remember last year we had a Laura Spates of in Britannia Works behind us, but getting through to 101 after 35 minutes she gave up. Now, since COVID, the reports I've had about getting through to 101 has been absolutely brilliant. People have said it's the fastest that they've ever picked up the phone. So that could be something to do with why so much crime is being reported. Thank you, Chair.
Well, that's that. There are a whole set of variables, aren't they? Come on, let's tidy this up then. So I think that there's come a request from members of the board that we just want to know a little bit more about where COVID has impacted on antisocial behaviour, and if we're going to do a bit more work around that. Robert, and you're going to put out a brief to members around anything you find out around COVID-related ASB.
Yes, Chair. I'll certainly do my best on that. Yeah.
Okay, super. Members, can we carry on and pick up agenda item or paragraph 5 of the report, which is about the partnership plan moving forward? Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So paragraph 5 gives you some headlines from the partnership activity. So we are having our partnership meetings using Teams technology, and the kit that's in the committee room next door has been very helpful in allowing our local police to participate in some of those meetings. They do have an option of telephone dial-in as well, but it's quite helpful that a couple of them have been able to come into the committee room and participate in the meetings directly as they would do previously. So reassurance that our kind of groups and meetings are taking place so that we can continue. We obviously did have a period of time where things stopped because of the focus on dealing with the COVID impacts in the short term. In the report, I've highlighted some changes that the domestic abuse counselling services have put in place. So they needed some extra funding to help them able to cope, to change some of their service provision. So they've gone to more telephone-based provision. They still do offer one-to-ones face-to-face if the clients need to do that. but obviously that's got to be done in a COVID safe manner. But the telephone change has been positive impact really. So and during the first 2 quarters this year, we've had 48 referrals. So and as I mentioned earlier, domestic abuse is quite a focus at the moment because of the potential risk of those incidents increasing. Members have just talked about drug concerns. In terms of the higher level, most serious types of drug-related crime and activity, operationality is the North Warwickshire police operation and working with partners around concerns around county lines related drug dealing, and that still continues. That we've had some real good success in the past in terms of our own housing department being able to seek closure orders on a number of premises, and those have definitely had quite big impacts locally around the Atherstone area. But operationality continues, and there's been recent activity in Hartshill around a premise that's been on the radar for a long time, and there's been various attempts to find drugs on the site, and this time they seem to be have made a successful impact there, and that's we'll have a court case shortly, and the Safer Neighbourhood team worked with some other police colleagues and raided a large-scale cannabis farm that was in the local area. So I don't think the investigations are fully complete yet. So there wouldn't have been a media release on that one yet, but that'll be soon. So yeah, it is all around us, and yeah, we do need to be realistic about concerns around it, and not create more fear of crime that we'll touch on in a short while. So ASB, just a positive note that the figures in August and September were showing signs of reducing, so hopefully that will continue, but we are again in another lockdown for at least till the 2nd of December, and we may be longer. But and young people and social behaviour, there was a particular group in Atherstone and Manchester that have come to attention. There's been a lot of focus on those. More recently, the police have managed to get the Youth Justice Service to actually work more closely with them on to try and prevent the young people getting involved in more serious crime matters. And the County Council targeted youth services seem to have increased their resource levels recently, and that's helped for them to do a bit more outreach work, and they're involved in our partnership working, so they're aware of individuals that have come to attention and locations that have been identified where we're getting lots of reports of antisocial behaviour. So they're all working with us to try and reduce the impacts of those and get the younger people onto more positive behaviours and futures. I mentioned fly tipping again in the report, just recognition that they are working with us within the Community Safety Partnership world. Neighbourhood Watch, in the previously they would have been doing lots of positive work on crime prevention at various community events. None of that's able to happen at the moment, so they're changing their focus to use social media a lot more to promote crime prevention advice and campaigns. They're also revamping their website to enable that they'll be able to sell crime prevention security measures more easily through that website. So we're optimistic that will enhance their offer to the general public out there in North Warwickshire. So we're supporting that through Community Safety Partnership funding as well this year. And I've got 3 new Nomad HD CCTV cameras due to be deployed tomorrow, all being well. There's 2 old DomeHawks that are going to be taken down and cashed in, because that'll mean now that the local Safer Neighbourhood team won't need to use the old-fashioned analog receiver cases, and it will just use laptop apps and use the digital technology. So that's a positive step, although we do use the two old cameras as well. And we're also working with Coleshill Town Council on the development of a new scheme for the Coleshill High Street. We've had discussions with them recently around the options for that. So originally they were planning to try and relay the existing cameras to the town hall. We've had options produced by the company Rapid Vision Systems, which will enable new digital cameras to be put in place, which are very similar to the scheme in Polesworth, but perhaps not on the same scale. And that's been a model that seems to have worked positively. And Councillor Parsons mentioned about the power supply issue that works in hand. Evan Ross in Community Development is looking at the issues around the power supply. So hopefully we'll get that sorted soon. So it's definitely recognised and we've got it in hand.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, thank you. And then shall I move on to paragraph 6, or do you want to take stock of that bit first, Chair?
Yeah, let's just again, lots of information being passed.
Yeah.
A couple of things. First of all, it's very well done to you, Robert, because without doubt you certainly have the CCTV agenda in North Warwickshire gripped, and you're doing some great work, because I can see you're doing it firsthand. So thanks very much indeed. As you say, Polesworth, great system in place, delivered by the parish. Coleshill picking it up again. So it's another area where, if members are engaging with parish councils and parish councils are looking to do some investment of their own funding in CCTV, then we can certainly talk about offering them the professional support and advice through the borough. So again, it's a point of call to Robert to be signposted about how best to move forward. And then secondly, before I just open it up, it's just to recognise the guys from Neighbourhood Watch. As you know, they do some stunning work across all of the public events during the good weather in our borough. They are fantastic guys. So I'm really pleased to see that they are now moving to develop a more effective website. So when we get some of the details of that website, and we've put £2,000 towards it, then we'll be getting it out to members and asking members to promote that website amongst everybody within your community, because our Neighbourhood Watch guys are brilliant. I have to say that. Now I can see I've got two hands. I've got Major. Major, you're out of there, off the M6. Welcome. Whoever you are, still muted, mate. So you're gonna have to unmute yourself.
You're saying evening all. These 3 cameras, where are they going to be deployed? Is it, or you're not decided yet? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can. Robert?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one camera's going to Dordon Road in Dordon / Polesworth. One's going to Sumner Road, Coleshill. And I'll try to think now off the top of my head from memory, the other one. So we've definitely got a location for each of them.
Right. My other question was, like, you're talking about camera system in Coleshill, Polesworth, then the Atherstone camera system. I mean, these camera systems are all going to be covered by the Atherstone police station. The police in Atherstone, aren't they? We haven't got are they going to be covered by Coleshill police? I don't think there's a policeman in Polesworth.
Chair, they're all available to the Police Safe and Neighbourhood team. So in Coleshill, it's quite an echo now, but in Coleshill, the local S&T will base there, will have access, but Coleshill Town Council are going to have access to the scheme. They're going to be responsible for the scheme.
Yeah, but if police are needed, where will they come from? From Atherstone or Bedworth, Nuneaton? Right.
For deployment of police, it'll still go through the control room, which is Leek Wootton base. So, you know, that's all decisions based on what the report is and the scale of risk around that incident. So it'll have, even though things are picked up on CCTV, it will come down to a decision about the grade of that incident and the risk level for deployment of police resources, and they'll be sent from wherever the nearest team are available. So there will be teams out and about, not just safe and neighbourhoods teams. There are response police teams available that will be deployed if about necessary.
My
Okay.
one last question. That's it.
Yeah, can I just before you do, Major, can I just remind everybody that we are broadcasting to the world as well. So if you are talking about sensitive locations or issues, you are telling the world while you're on camera. And I don't know how many people are following us at the moment live. Do you know, Jenny? No, we don't know. So just be conscious you are live on the internet.
The ANPR cameras, that we've just having an upgrade in Atherstone, and the police are for that they would welcome it. But you're saying there's a lot of red tape to have ANPR cameras. Plus, while we were talking about all this drug dealings or drug related things, the ANPR cameras would help reduce that sort of work, wouldn't it?
Chair?
Yep, Robert?
Yep, certainly yes. And any operational police will always say, yes, that equipment will help us. There is a process for the deployments of those type of cameras and equipment. We are in a dialogue through our local inspector and above around the existing ANPR schemes that are available in Warwickshire. There are cameras in North Warwickshire, ANPR cameras. So any opportunity to increase those, we'll be open to a dialogue with the police, but they're not. It's not an overnight kind of fix. And I know the town council had previous discussions around that. The change from post alliance, not everything is completely settled down yet. But that's certainly something that we will pick up as a keen priority item, really, to discuss.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Thank you. Now, members, I'm conscious we've been going for the best part of an hour and 10 minutes, and we've got a bit to get through. So, David, you have the honour of the last question.
All right, thank you. It's a comment, really, so I'll be quick. You mentioned the Polesworth system, and I have to say there that the Polesworth system wouldn't have been anything like as easy to get going and successful, but for the invaluable work and advice that we did have from Robert, and indeed the police, who worked with us very much in getting that system planned out and putting in. The other thing is, for anybody who's thinking about it, it's not a case of system installed, job done. Really, you have to keep sort of on top of what you're doing with that CCTV as a long running thing. But it's well worth doing, we think anyway, and we've been very pleased with that. But yeah, Robert's advice was absolutely invaluable. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, David. And Jody, you snuck in with one hand at the very
Sorry, it's
depth of the
not actually.
debate.
I just received a message from Councillor Downs, who's supposed to be in this meeting, said that 2 members of her family are poorly with COVID, and she's been pulled away this evening. So she would like to deeply express her apologies for not being present and not apologising earlier. But there were unforeseen circumstances.
Okay, we've got those. Then we'll note those apologies down. Thank you, Jody. Right, members, I propose to move on to item 6 of the report, which is about the perceptions of safety in North Warwickshire. Robert.
Thank you, Chair. Section 6. So members will be aware that there was a Have Your Say on Community Safety survey, which was launched back in February, and we started with great gusto in terms of getting responses to the survey in the early weeks of that. And then COVID intervened, so that had a big impact on the overall responses, which are fairly low, really, in terms of Warwickshire. But the information is useful, and I've put in some headlines, really, but Members won't be surprised by this, but it does demonstrate the high fear level of crime in North Warwickshire by local residents. The Kingsbury area has come out particularly on these results, but taken with a word of caution because of the low sample numbers and things. But it does demonstrate what we felt before, that there is a need to try and address the higher fear levels of crime, which when you compare to the actual levels of crime, perhaps we wouldn't think that people should be so in fear of crime. So we're going to set up a little group in terms of the partnership to actually consider these results in detail, to actually try and identify some positive actions in terms of reassurance and help to communicate about the actual reality of the picture of crime and disorder in North Warwickshire. So we'd like members to come forward with any suggestions or things that they would like us to take into account and consider as part of that work. And perhaps in a future next meeting, we'll come back on a bit more detail around the results and some of the actions that we're going to propose to take. So anything else, Chair, you'd like to add?
Yeah, just to recognise where the report says Kingsbury JSNA, that's the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment area, which is a health boundary, and we have hundreds of boundaries, don't we? So for Kingsbury JSNA, that's Kingsbury, Curdworth, Waterorton, Coleshill North, and some of the Whitakers. So it's quite a large area. But as Robert said, we were doing really well with the responses to the survey from North Warwickshire residents, and then they have slightly been impacted, but we've still got a reasonable portion of survey respondents that we should do something with. So really, I mean, this is, as Robert said, this is where I throw it open to the floor really and say, come on then, well, what should we be thinking of doing if we are going to say as a group of councillors and as a borough council that we want to make sure that people feel better and more safe within our borough? Because what we do know, and what we've talked about in previous meetings, is actually we do have very low levels of reported crimes. We do have the odd nasty incident, but we do generally have very, very low levels of reported crime for the residential communities. But that isn't how our residents feel. So we have had an offer of support from the county and from the police and other partner agencies to do this work, and we do have a bit of money that we've got in our community safety budget that we could invest in it. The question becomes, what do we do about it? Because actually there's very little good practice anywhere about effectively impacting on people's perceptions of crime. So it's over to you, members. Marion, and then I've got Jodie, and then I've got Dave Parsons.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, this is not just coming from me. We did have a bit of a pre-discussion, and Denise was in with this as well. And we were saying that getting information out on something like a media programme into the community. I know with COVID, we've actually got a community newsletter that goes out every week or fortnight, because COVID was very frightening to everybody, and to give that information all the time with the positives that's going on was something that has had an impact in the community. What resources are available to help people, not all the negatives about statistics, but the positives about what's out there to help you, how people can go on networks to get support groups going and that sort of thing. And that's been the sort of thing that's helped. And I think that's the same sort of thing with the police and resources that are going on now. They don't want statistics all the time, and they don't actually want to know what's going on with Joe Soap round the corner. They want to know if there's resources for them to go to, where they can go to for those resources, and also if there's support groups going on in their little communities. And I think Teams have been and social media in that way has been a great support for people, because you don't have to go out your front door when it's windy and cold and people don't want to go to a support group. They can turn on their computer, and I think for some people that's been a good thing. For people that haven't got that media resource, then that's when you need to have the resources of other things. But I do think sometimes media and resources going around are things that people need to know about. The better side of the police. We're here to help you. These are our contacts. These are the resources we've got, on a more relaxed media resource. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks, Mary. And I think those some really good points, aren't they? And one of the things that always intrigues me when I'm looking at the Facebook accounts for the communities of Coleshill and Water Orton is these accounts are very, very quick to spread bad news, and there's almost like a hue and a cry that goes up when somebody reports that they've had a crime, particularly a crime against property. A lot of people will do a post, and it will certainly spread. It'll get the message out to everybody, but I don't know whether it's good in terms of prevention or whether it's bad in terms of making everybody really worried. So Hayden, and then Jody, and then Dave. Hayden.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a thought. I mean, as you say, I mean, there's many things that affect people's fear of crime or fear of being affected by crime. And as you say, social media is a particular one. I don't know how you deal with that, but I mean, when I look on some of it, and you think some of the reports on that are apocryphal, aren't they? You know, they're not people sort of. There's always a strange person hanging around somewhere, but there is always a strange person hanging around, I suppose. I think some of the fear of crime and some of the things that you reported to me, I suppose are resources, but they're mainly the response of some of the police. I don't want to bung it all on the police, but you know, if you ring the police up and you're 20 minutes trying to get a phone call through, if you're then 30 or 40 minutes or 2 days before anybody comes out, and you know, trying to report something, I think it's very difficult to think that you feel safe. I know, and I always say to people, if something life-threatening was happening, the police do respond. But I think that so often again, I know it's down to resources and what's going on in different places, but it does affect people's fear of crime, people's perception of crime, and perception that they're not safe because there's no backup there, because there's no response. And I think a lot of it's down. It's a holistic thing, and it's not just that. But a lot of the reports I get are around that, the police's response, or it takes so long, or they don't care, or nothing happens. When they come out, you know, nobody's interested anyway. And that's what I get a lot of the time. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Hayden. And they're good points and well made, aren't they, around the speed of response to people that are in need of help, and also the visibility of the policing service. And I think that's definitely something that we'll pick up when we start thinking about some solutions and come back and then update you all on. Jody.
Yeah, hi. Obviously, we've spoken before about the dominance of the response and the importance of social media in that response. And I think we have to be very mindful of the fact that because there was a lot of engagement through social media, it may not be a balanced report, but I do think that that's a really important message to take away. And I think that it also gives us a really good access to any more information, the kind of the quick fire questions and really targeted things. Some of the things that the questions that we were asking about the surveys and the things that come up forwards, especially I think one thing that's really, really felt is whether or not the statistics that we put forward are always reliable and trustworthy, and whether people feel that they represent their local picture. So I've put up statistics before now that we've gained, and the response from my community has been that doesn't reflect what we know. And I think we've got to be very careful that if we are putting statistics out there, that they are reflecting what people know. And if it is only reported crime and there is a discrepancy between reported crime and actual crime, then we need to start kind of looking at balancing that, so that when we are talking about the crime which is happening in our communities, there is a balance. And how we can actually engage those people that don't report crime so that we have a more accurate picture. So I think where we fall down at the moment is we are saying this crime may not be happening, or there are low levels of this crime, and actually people are perceiving it as being high levels. And that discrepancy doesn't mean that the crime isn't happening. It means that we might not be aware of the full picture. So I think having a really good local knowledge and having a really trustworthy understanding of what's actually happening, I think is really key to actually getting people to trust the systems, to trust that we know what we're talking about, and to actually realise that the picture that we have is the same as the picture that they have of their surroundings. I also think, and you kind of referred to it before, that if we kind of finish the picture of reporting, we report a lot on crime and crime figures, but we don't necessarily report on the policing. We don't kind of finish the job and show people what's actually happened to the information they've given us, or whether there have been any arrests made, or whether any, and I understand there's a lot of obviously sensitive information around that, but I think if people understand that the information they have given us has had an impact, that might also encourage people to feel more secure and to know that people have been held accountable for any of the wrongdoings. I think that would also be really important. And I also, one of the big things that comes across is, as has already been mentioned, to big responses, to big crimes, there is a huge response, and I think generally people are happy with it. But to the small crimes which affect a large number of people, I don't always think there is that quicker response or a satisfying response, because it's not seen as priority at the time, or we don't have the resources for it at the time. And I think that kind of leaves an underlying dissatisfaction or a feeling that people aren't secure because those small things haven't necessarily been dealt with to their satisfaction, or as they would prefer them to be dealt with. So I think if we could invest some time into the community policing and the actual dealing with small things on a very kind of ground level, that might be advantageous too.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Jodie. And again, there's some great points in there, isn't there? There's this issue about how do we handle the messaging of reported crime versus the unreported incidents, which people are living with day to day but are never getting reported. So how do we make sure that we have a sensitivity to those incidents and a responsiveness to those unreported incidents, if that makes sense? I think, Jodie, that the issue about reporting closure is really important as well, isn't it? And it's not only about reporting how many crimes have been recorded, it's also possibly about reporting how many crimes have been solved and how many offenders or perpetrators have been locked up. And I think that's an interesting one to take away, particularly where you have a signal incident. So you have an incident which causes a whole lot of concern within a community. There is a question about how do you message the end of that incident back to that community, and you're quite right, very frequently that's not done particularly well. So the community takes all the pain and the fear of the incident when it happens, but they aren't able to bring a closure to it, if that's possible. All right, those are good ones. Yeah, go on, Jodie.
We had a spate of burglaries and shed burglaries, and just random. It was kind of a mini crime wave over about 4 or 5 weeks, and the perpetrator was caught. But does everybody that knows that there was a mini crime wave know that the perpetrator was caught? So, and it's, there might be 200-300 people, maybe even if it's talking social media pages, 1,000 people have gone away understanding that there was a lot of crime happening in that 4-week period. But do they understand that something was done about it? And I think that it is. It's really, really important to kind of put that in as well and get that balance.
Okay, thank you, Jodie. That's great. Dave, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think Aidan, yourself and Jodie, you've all mentioned response times, visibility, and those are really crucial issues. And there's also, I think, a big legacy issue, to be honest. People have seen police stations removed, and that's what they've seen over the past sort of number of years. And the perception is that that a response in Polesworth, for example, will still come from Bedworth. Now, I don't think that's actually true for all of the day anymore. I think there are officers deployed, I believe, in Coleshill and some in Atherstone as well. But that's not being publicised, essentially, and it's not being made clear. And that's a big issue which has got to be put out, really. You can't let people see, you know, the police in retreat and then say nothing about the fact that they're coming back and expect people to perceive that that's happened. And that is a real issue. I'm convinced of it. There's the minor issue, you know, things like drug dealing don't help because people see that in their neighbourhood and see people doing it with impunity, and that doesn't give a good picture. You know, if they can get away with that on the doorstep, what else can be got away with on the doorstep? I mean, there is some good news there. There are more officers about. One problem is that we're not getting, on my patch anyway, we've got some really good PCSOs, but our full-time officers seem to be changing all the time. You know, we never see it. We just get to know one and they're gone. There is a big public relations issue here, and until you manage to get the police on the front foot and not sort of the picture of the abandonment and the slow response times, there is a good reason for people being, you know, having an exaggerated fear in the north of our county because they have seen the police retreat. And if it's not made public that they're coming back, that is not going to help. So, thank you, Chair.
Dave, and again, Dave, some really good points on there, because there are bits of good news to flag out there, and there is an issue about just resetting everybody's understanding, because there are some historical facts that people are still understanding because nobody's told them the difference, as you quite rightly say. So yeah, Dave, we'll pick those ones up as well. I think they're valuable contributions. Members, does anybody else have anything to add before we tidy this one up? Okay, super. So what we're going to do with this is we will put it on the agenda for the next main community safety partnership meeting, the North Warwickshire Responsible Authorities Group meeting. We'll talk about it there, and then we'll come back to this board or this subcommittee with an update on what partners have committed to do, and all of the issues you've raised tonight will ensure that we include in the discussions that we have in January. Is it the 21st of January, Robert? Was it set?
The 25th of January is that meeting.
Yeah.
Set.
So the next meeting of the North Warwickshire Community Safety Partnership is the 25th of January, and we'll have this down as a main agenda item. Okay, super. Right, thank you. So, Robert, is there anything else to say on agenda item number 6 before we move on to corporate targets?
No, I think we've covered everything there.
Okay, members, with your permission, I intend to take item 7 and item 8 by exception, unless anybody wants to raise anything. Okay, so I can't see anybody raising any hands, so I take it you all note Robert's excellent report, and we'll go through 7 and 8 then and move on to 9. One last time, is everybody happy to go straight to 9?
Just for the record,
Mr. Tobin?
Just for the record, also in relation to item 6, you didn't formally ask the committee whether they're accepting that recommendation to note the report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tobin. You've reminded me. It's my dreadful chairing skills. So let's just do the formalities on this. So back to agenda item number 5 was for noting. That's page 6 of 56. Can I ask everybody happy to note? Yeah. Numbers. Sorry, Mr. Tobin.
Chair, agenda item number 5 you did. It's number 6 that you haven't.
Yep. So number 6, colleagues, which is page 16. The recommendations to the committee are that we consider the updates and identify any areas for further scrutiny, which we have done in terms of the COVID antisocial behaviour. There's also other issues around noting the proposed work to consider the results of the Have Your Say community safety survey. And we've obviously just finished that discussion. Is everybody happy with that recommendation to note it? Yep, thank you. Mr. Tobin, do we cover 7 and 8 as well?
Yes, Chair, if you wish to do so.
Okay, members, so if I can just take you to page 30. Let's just find 7. So it's page 32, which is agenda item number 7, which is just members consider the performance achieved and highlight any areas for improvement. So members, can we take it that you note that? Thank you. And then finally page 38, which is agenda item number 8. Again, it's where members consider the performance and highlight any areas for further investigation. And members, having read the papers, you'll be aware that performance is actually rather good. So just out for noting again, if everybody's happy. Thank you. That moves us on to agenda item number 9 then. I'm now covered in papers on the desk. And agenda item number 9 is improving road safety in North Warwickshire and the associated action plan. So, Robert, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides members with an update on the action plan that we've prepared previously. A lot of work on road safety is organised at a county-wide level, and with the County Council being the lead authority on road safety matters generally. The good news is that there's now a strategic road safety partnership board and an operational board. And I, for my sins, represent the community safety partnerships in Warwickshire on that operational board. So that gives me an opportunity to input to the work of the partnership at that level, and also be a channel to take road safety concerns and issues that members and local communities raise with us here in North Warwickshire. So, in the report, there's a bit more detail about 2 recent meetings. But in terms of updates, attached to the report is the action plan showing an October update for the various actions there. And in terms of key points to highlight to the subcommittee, I'll just run through those now and then give you an opportunity to ask questions or raise concerns. So members will be aware that the Police and Crime Commissioner provided some road safety grant funding opportunities. In the first round, we bid for equipment to help the local community speed watch schemes, and we were successful there that additional speed monitoring devices were purchased, and that those are held by Warwickshire Police and available for communities locally to use. And I'll come back to the community speed watch in a little while. The second round of funding, we bid to do some more work on bikeability schemes, and based on some work that was taking place focused on a coastal cycle forum. We did try and bid to enhance the provision of those schemes across schools across North Warwickshire. The Police and Crime Commissioner and the office had a process in terms of deciding which grants were supported, and in that case decided that they would only support initially a smaller level of schools being part of that project. So we actually got a grant allocation of £2,880. Then just as that's kind of got set up and starting to make progress, it all got delayed with the COVID impact. So at the moment, Evan Ross in Leisure and Community Development is exploring some options around how some of that scheme can continue locally, and that will be firmed up and agreed with the Police and Crime Commissioner's office. So he's still optimistic that we'll be able to deliver some of the elements of that project. Community Speedwatch works underway at the moment to prepare to bring those schemes back to a more operational position again. Obviously, COVID's impacted on those schemes being allowed to operate during the lockdown period. So that's caused some delays and frustrations, across the borough. But the Safer Neighbourhood teams are actively looking to prepare, and they're booking venues to do a bit more training work around refreshing on the arrangements for the scheme. So hopefully we'll see some more positive progress when we next meet on those schemes. So they're all being prepared to step up again. So the key headlines in the report about the Warwickshire Road Safety Partnership work, I've listed quite a few bullet points in the report from both of those meetings. So I won't go through each of them now, but I'll welcome any questions in turn on those. But I think for me, the message is it's a positive step forward that this partnership is now re-established, if you like, and we've got some opportunities to influence their agenda. And a key headline from it is that there's some additional resource in the shape of a road safety coordinator, and we've met her recently. So she's named Faye Wildman. So she's quite enthusiastic and energetic, and she started work on taking forward some of the aims of the partnership there. But she's open to discussions around what are the issues locally. So we've had a couple of meetings already with her, and a big thing has been about the communication and engagement with local communities and parishes around this agenda, so that we can get those communication channels open and that the people are listened to around their concerns. So we won't be able to promise that everything will be addressed, and there'll be various additional road safety improvements measures implemented, but certainly we've got an opportunity to influence that agenda. So I think, Chair, I'll stop there and open it up really. So
okay, thank you, Robert, and good work to you for you in terms of getting the PCC's grants. I know you've put a lot of time and effort into writing the bids, and it's great that they've been successful. Just a little bit frustrating that COVID has stripped us up, particularly with the schools programme, because we were about to start looking at delivering bikeability into every school in North Warwickshire, starting on the west and then spreading out further once we got the programme bolted down. So that's one to come. Now I can see I've got Jodie with a hand up. Jodie?
Hi. Yeah, I share your frustration about the bikeability. I also want to share that I'm aware in my community that there are at least 2 other organisations. I think one of the schools and one of the charities locally are also aiming to provide bikeability at level 2. So I wondered if there was any joined up thinking. I don't know whether Evan is aware, but I will certainly ask them to make Evan aware. But there may be other people across the borough who we could partner with to make that more efficient. Certainly don't think there's any point running 3 a year in.
Well, Jodie, that would be if we know of other groups that would do it outside school time, outside curriculum time. That would be fantastic, because we know that one of the challenges for the head teachers is to find curriculum space to do things like bikeability. Bikeability is the old road safety cycling proficiency. Yeah. So if we can identify that there are other groups that would have the skill and the ability to deliver it in an organised structure, then we should certainly be picking those up. So if you could drop Robert and me a note, then we can look into that. Okay, I've got Marion and then I've got Dave. Marion?
Thank you, Chair. One of the questions was sort of answered when you said the initiative was starting in the west, because I was going to ask where it was starting and who was starting it and and what have you for the initiative of the bikeability. But also, we have roads that should link from villages to schools for bike trails. So are you saying, because I had to go on a comfort break, so I missed a little bit, are you asking us to write into Robert with trails that are roads now that we think should be opened with pathways to secondary schools? I don't want to open a can of worms here if I'm going off on the wrong tangent.
No, don't give Robert that monkey, blimey. He's got enough to do. No, what we were talking about is the bikeability scheme, which is a road safety scheme effectively. But it's, cycling to schools is part of it, but cycling anywhere is part of it really. It's the old cycling proficiency test. I mean, if you are aware of some risky locations where you think we need to look at options, then flag them to us, because members will remember that we did have an excellent record in North Warwickshire of young people not being killed and seriously injured on our roads. Now, unfortunately, last year there was a fatality in the borough from a young lad on a bike. But the challenge with this is always to keep doing positive things that prevent there being no victims, and keeping everybody safe. So please don't bombard Robert with lots of issues, but do give us some pointers if you think there are some risky locations or there are some opportunities somewhere. And we'll certainly see in a post-COVID world how we can move that forward. Yeah.
Well, I know the children are still using these areas, but they have to go out in the road because the pathway is so overgrown that it's not able to be used. So those are the areas I'm sort of talking about.
Yeah, well, together with you as a local councillor, we can pick some of those issues up, and particularly where that pathway is in public ownership. Yeah, we could look at that. David.
Yeah. I can see David nodding, so I should be on to him as well. Thanks.
Yeah, don't forget David's got lots of money, so you want to be spending Dave Parsons' council grant money.
Spend the lot. No, I thought I might hear from you, Marion, yes. One of the things, that I do find difficult really, is the issue of speeding, because all of the communities that I represent on the county, there are complaints about speeding all the time. And what we don't get, unless things are happening that I'm not aware of, as far as I'm aware, there are 2 speed awareness vans in the county, but we just don't see them in our neck of the woods. And I know the Speed Watch volunteers, they're great and they're wonderful, but they are volunteers and they're not being backed up. Actually, what's needed is the speed awareness vans popping up in our area from time to time. If they nick me, I should be very displeased. But we did actually have, many years ago, a parish councillor advocated this in Polesworth and did actually get nicked on his way. But you have to take those as you come. And but we do have a speeding problem, as do most areas. In all the communities I represent, speeding is raised as an issue. And I honestly feel that we are not being backed up as we should be by the resourcing issues. I know that these vans are targeted, where the issues are apparently, but actually there are issues in the north, and I'm not aware of one of these vans being around in this neck of the woods, well, for years and years and years. Perhaps somebody can tell me otherwise, but David,
I think you've hit the nail. I think you've hit the nail on the head, because you, I can't remember the last time I saw a speed enforcement van parked at the side of the road in my community, and it is an issue that when they come out, it's all the local residents they knock off, but that they're still speeding. And I think we'll take that as an action, Dave, to come back to members and just report on how often the speed enforcement vehicle is in the borough, and what we can do if we want to increase it to some of the more risky locations, because
Yeah,
enforcement is part of the education programme, even though it comes with 3 points.
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, good point, Dave.
Yes.
We'll pick that one up.
Thank you, David. Yeah, thank you.
And Jodie, I've got you there.
Yeah, sorry again. Yeah, I kind of want to follow up what Dave was saying actually, because this is the young man you were talking about is a friend of mine's son, and obviously a very, very close issue to my heart. But I do think we have an over-reliance at the moment on the Community Speedwatch programme, and I think that the other issues that could be brought in to control speed and to make our roads safer just aren't present. I know we've been working quite closely with the ANSI community, where money has actually been put up by the community and by local organisations in order to improve their road. And even with that, the actual scope for making a difference is so ridiculously limited. We're not allowed 20 zone, we're not allowed SIDS, we're not allowed certain restrictions of width or height, and we're not allowed the actual restrictions that you're given that we are not allowed within Warwickshire. It is quite prohibitive to actually cutting down some of the speeds that we're seeing. And in other areas, in other districts and in other counties, they aren't there. And it doesn't seem as if we're getting a fair shot at being able to actually control or address these issues from an environmental point of view before you even get to the prosecution. Now, if we could control it with the environment on the roads, then we can limit speed in other ways permanently, not just when people are watching. And I think that's kind of part of the infrastructure that we're missing and part of where we need to be heading towards. The other thing is I'm delighted to finally see the partnership up and running. I think it's been a huge thing that's been missing, and it's a very, very welcome new start. And I really do kind of appreciate the local people being able to share their expertise and actually have some input rather than just relying on statistics of near misses and accidents. I think that's much more proactive in prevention rather than dealing with it when it's too late.
Okay, thanks for that, Jodie. Well, we will take back the request about the infrastructure that we can put in place locally to reduce speeds, particularly in residential and risk communities. I know that colleagues from Atherstone were speaking to me earlier in the week about options for 20-mile-an-hour zones, and that's definitely one we'll take back and have a conversation about what the policy is for the Highways Authority and police colleagues about looking at 20-mile-an-hour zones across the borough. I mean, I go to Bristol quite a lot where my children are at university, and you cannot go anywhere in Bristol that is a residential built-up area that isn't 20 miles an hour. So it's clearly good practice, which is having dividends elsewhere in the country. So we do need to look at it. So we'll ask Robert at the next meeting to go back and just raise those questions about built infrastructure and 20-mile-an-hour speed limits that reduce speeds at high-risk locations in residential communities. Colleagues, anything else that we've got on the agenda? No. Well, I'm looking at the clock, and we are rocketing towards our 2-hour limit of 8:30. I know it's all been great fun, and you all think it's about 7 o'clock, but sadly not. Robert, have we got any other business to do before we mop up agenda item number 9?
No, Chair. I'll gladly take any kind of issues and raise those through the partnership and in the discussions with the road safety coordinator as well. So,
okay. Well, thank you, Robert, and members. Just to make sure that Mr. Tobin thinks I'm not a complete rubbish chair, can I just take you to the recommendation for agenda item 9, and that is that members note the report and consider progress. So you can all just nod your heads and say you note the report. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Right. That takes us to the end of the agenda, members. Unless anybody has any major issues, I'm going to end this meeting. No, thank you very much indeed, colleagues. Thanks for your contributions tonight. I know it's not easy sitting there on the end of the screen. I think some of the discussions that we've had have been really valuable. And I look forward to seeing you in the new year when we have our next Safer Communities subcommittee. Thank you very much indeed.